I never knew he'd return blind and needing my help after abandoning me for 10 years. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The shadows in my room felt heavy, like the weight of 1,000 memories pressing down on my chest. I could hardly breathe. The silence was deafening, a void that echoed with whispers of the past. There he was, standing at my door. My heart raced. Caleb. After a decade of silence, he appeared out of nowhere, his eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Confusion knotted in my stomach. How had he become this stranger? The boy I once loved, now a specter of pain and loss. Nothing could prepare me for the news. He was blind. I couldn't grasp it. The vibrant, adventurous Caleb who once danced in the sunlight was gone, replaced by this hollow shell. I stumbled through memories. Laughter. Promises whispered under scattered stars. We were invincible then. Friends, lovers, dreamers until he vanished, leaving me with nothing but questions. My father had always warned me about falling in love with a boy like him. Wild, adventurous, but ultimately, he believed, doomed to break my heart. I chose to ignore his warnings, clinging to hope, but hope had slipped through my fingers. 10 years of abandonment, of unanswered calls, of waiting for a message that never came. I turned into a ghost in my own life, a shadow sweeping through the halls of our shared dreams. And now he stood before me, needing my help as if nothing had happened. A shiver crawled down my spine. The hurt and anger coiled tightly around my heart, squeezing, why now? The question slipped out before I could stop it. I regretted it immediately, but the truth hung heavy in the air. His trembling hands reached out, ghosting over the threshold like a child lost in a dark room. I felt a wave of conflicting emotions crash over me. The love I had buried was still there, flickering like a candle in the depths of despair. But how could I let him back in after everything? His face twisted in pain, and I ached for him. I had no choice, he whispered, the rawness of his voice cutting through the tension. I lost my sight and I lost myself. The admission hung there like a storm cloud, shadowing the room. His presence stirred something deep within me, part compassion, part rage. This was not the reunion I wanted. I stood frozen, battling my own tumultuous thoughts. Could I bring myself to help the boy who had once been my world? The boy who had shattered my heart? But he needed May's voice broke, revealing the vulnerability behind his bravado. I realized the irony. The boy who left me now sought my help, blind to the reality of the pain he had caused, that I should have slammed the door in his face. I should have turned my back. But I didn't. A chill raced through me as I considered the long journey ahead. My heart pounded in my chest, uncertainty propelling me towards a choice I was terrified to make. I reached for the doorknob, hesitating as the past swirled around us, threatening to bind us in its web once more. What if I opened the door to a past that was better left closed? Can we talk? His voice was small, filled with a desperate hope that sent a tremor through my resolve. Could I really face him again? I knew this was just the beginning. The kind of beginning that unfolds like a dark story full of twists, secrets, and heartbreak. I stole a glance into his blind eyes, searching for the boy I once knew, but all I found was uncertainty. What had he done in those years? What lurked behind his silence? That unanswered question clawed at me, gnawing at my insides. And just like that, my heart began to crack open, allowing a small flicker of hope to peek through. Okay, I whispered, my breath shaky. The door creaked open, revealing a path I wasn't sure I was ready to walk. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The door swung open, creaking as if it carried the weight of the years that had passed. Caleb stepped into my life again, this time as a shadow of what he'd once been. His presence filled the room with an eerie blend of nostalgia and apprehension, memories flickering like fireflies caught in a cage. I couldn't find the words to bridge the vast chasm between his past and my present. As he tentatively moved deeper into the room, his hands grazed the familiar objects that signified so much to us both. The guitar that once sang beneath his fingertips now felt like a monument to a lost era. A song echoed in my mind, our laughter interwoven with the strumming. Each brush of his fingers sent ripples of time crashing against my heart. How could he stand there, blind to the loss he left behind? Sit down, please. My voice cracked, betraying the hurricane of emotions swirling inside me. He nodded slowly, carefully finding a place on my worn-out sofa, the remnants of our shared laughter still etched within the fabric. I sat opposite him, unsure of how to start, the silence threatening to consume us both. "Thank you for letting me in," he murmured, his voice tremulous. I studied the lines etched into his face, pain and regret sprawled across his features like a map, guiding me to a truth I was reluctant to uncover. My heart twisted as I thought about the years filled with questions and longing. The weight of my anger thundered in my chest. So, what happened? My tone was sharper than I intended, but the sting felt necessary. I needed to understand how the boy who had promised to stay had turned into this broken man seeking solace after a decade of absence. His breath hitched. "I didn't plan any of this," he began, the tremor of his voice revealing the hidden battles he fought. "I was in an accident, an explosion. The doctors didn't expect me to survive, and even if I did, they didn't know if I'd ever see again. But I made it out, just different." Tears brimmed in his eyes, a hint of vulnerability that fiercely clashed with the ghost of my memories that I couldn't bear to face anyone. He continued, his hands clenched into fists. "Not after I became this shell of who I was." Each word was a stab, carving a new wound over the old scars. I wanted to scream, to throw his excuses back in his face. This wasn't fair. This fragile creature before me was fragments of my once wild-hearted Caleb, now a puzzle with missing pieces. "And you thought disappearing was the answer?" I shot back, though the anger in my voice felt weak against the tide of emotional turmoil. "Honestly, I thought you'd be better off without me." "You deserved happiness," he whispered, and in that moment, I could hear the clash of his sorrow against my own, a thunderstorm of unresolved emotions. I was scared. I thought that if I came back to you blind, you'd hate me even more. Hate wasn't the strongest feeling I had for him, but I could understand his fear. I felt something different, more complex, a bitter cocktail of resentment and longing, hope and despair. "You didn't give me a choice, Caleb," I said softly, the words laced with a heartbreak I couldn't quite shake off. "You left, and I waited." Another moment of silence enveloped us, thickening the air like fog. Caleb leaned back, his form sagging under the burden of our shared past. "I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know how to deal with my new reality. There were days when all I thought about was what I'd lost. You were the first person I thought of in that hospital. I should have reached out to you sooner." As I sat there, the familiar ache in my chest began to swell anew. Could I unlock the door to my heart wide enough to let him in again? In the past, clarity had come easily. Now, it felt tangled. Just then, a faint noise interrupted the weight of our conversation, the soft chiming of my phone. I glanced at it, an unknown number vibrated against the table, its persistence pulling my attention. I hesitated but picked it up and answered, a sense of foreboding lurking heavily in the air. "Hello?" I said, trying to mask my curiosity. "Is this Hannah?" An unfamiliar voice asked, a voice that sent shivers coursing through my spine. "Yes, who is this?" "I'm calling regarding Caleb Sullivan." The gravity in that statement instantly pulled me back from the tender threads of our conversation that I could feel Caleb stiffen across from me, his attention shifting sharply towards me, senses heightened, a hawk searching for a subtle shift in wind. "What about Caleb?" My voice wavered. "The accident, there are circumstances surrounding it that we need to discuss. It's about the explosion. There are details you should know." My heart thundered as I glanced at Caleb, confusion knitting his brow, the shadows of our past still hovering nearby like a smothering quilt. The conversation shifted from our fragile reconnection into something more ominous. peeling back layers of a story that hadn't ended with his return. As the reality of that phone call sunk heavily in my chest, I realized this moment held more than just our fragile forgiveness and broken paths. It bore the weight of a possible secret, something more sinister than either of us could comprehend, and suddenly, I felt the ground shift beneath me once again, like the earth cracking open, revealing old wounds we hadn't even begun to address. "Caleb," I whispered, uncertain of how to break the news, uncertain of how to navigate this new storm that had just rolled in. The air crackled with an intensity one hadn't felt in years, a strange fusion of hope and dread. Caleb's eyes searched mine, the deep pools of uncertainty reflecting a raw vulnerability that was both alarming and heartbreaking. The weight of the revelations hung between us like a fragile thread, fraying with every passing second. "What did they say?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, brimming with a tension that mirrored my own. I couldn't help but notice how his hands fidgeted as if they were searching for ground that had vanished beneath him. They mentioned the explosion," I managed, feeling a lump forming in my throat. "They want to talk about circumstances surrounding it. Something we should know, something about what happened to you." The words tumbled out, heavy with unsaid fears. Caleb's brow furrowed deeper, and I could see a flash of something primal in his gaze. Was it fear or anger? It was difficult to distinguish. What does that even mean? What could they possibly know that I don't? I could see his mind racing, the realization settling as dread consuming him. "I thought I was the only one who survived, the only one left to tell the story," he murmured, his voice strained, disbelief lingering in the air like an unopened gift that I didn't know how to answer him. Did he realize how fragile this moment was for both of us? Did he perceive the stakes that now loomed larger than our pain? The hum of uncertainty washed over us, drowning any tentative intimacy we had begun to explore. "I'll call them back," I said firmly, my fingers trembling as I fumbled to hang up the call, clinging desperately to some semblance of control. "Let's figure this out together." The reassurance felt feeble against the tide of tumultuous emotions swirling within me. Caleb leaned forward, the intensity of his gaze forcing me to meet his eyes. "I need to know, Hannah. If there's more to this, we have to face it." His expression shifted, determination intermingled with fear. For a moment, he seemed more alive than he had since entering my space, as though the specter of our past began to breathe again. "Okay," I agreed, my heart thudding in my chest. "Let's call them." "But what if it's bad news?" He took a deep breath, his shoulders rolling back as if he were warding off the ghosts of his past, pushing away years of guilt and regret. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." His words clung to the air, bridging the gulf between us, but a twinge of doubt gnawed at my resolve. What if this revelation broke the small strands of hope we had just begun to weave? I called the number back, my hands perspiring as I waited for the line to connect, every second feeling like an eternity. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was steady and calm, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. "I'd like to know more about the details you were referring to concerning Caleb Sullivan's accident," I said, trying to keep my voice as composed as possible. There was a brief pause before they responded. "Yes, thank you for calling back. This isn't easy to discuss, but we believe the explosion may not have been an accident." A chill coursed through me, curling my fingers in a death grip around the phone. Caleb's expression turned to stone, shock imprinted on his face. "What do you mean?" he demanded, his voice rising with each word. "Witness accounts indicate unusual activity leading up to the explosion. We think there's a possibility it was sabotage." The word echoed in my mind, tumbling through the spiral of hope and despair I had tried to navigate. My pulse quickened as I glanced at Caleb, his eyes glinting with something fierce defiance mixed with disbelief. "Sabotage? Why? Who would want to hurt us?" he whispered, the tremor in his voice underscoring the escalating turmoil. "I'm not sure. But we need to investigate further. We need you to come down to the station for your safety and for what it might reveal." I set the phone down, processing the weight of what had just been thrown upon us. It felt as if the ground had shifted again, leaving us on unsteady footing. Caleb reached across the small distance between us, his fingers brushing against a connection that seemed fragile yet somehow electrifying amidst the chaos. "We can't just sit here," he said, desperation creeping back into his voice. "If this is true, if there are people out there who would hurt us, I can't let them win. His determination sent warmth through the icy tendrils of my fear. You're right. We need to act, I replied, my heart racing with a mix of longing for the past and the need to forge a new path, a path that now offered glimpses of truth beneath the weight of unresolved emotions. But just as I was ready to stand alongside him, my phone buzzed once more, a cascade of notifications streaming across the screen. Among them was a message from my mother, the words stark and urgent. Hannah, you need to come home. There's something important you must know. Pleased that I felt the ground beneath my feet tremble again. Another storm was brewing on the horizon, one that held the potential to unravel our tenuous connection. I turned towards Caleb, his expression reading confusion and concern, the weight of my looming responsibilities threatening to fracture the fragile bond we had tentatively rekindled. Caleb, I have to leave. My voice trailed off, a fresh wave of uncertainty crashing over me, tugging at my heartstrings. Wait, he said, his brow knitted in concern. What if this all connects? What if it's about me, about the explosion? The thought was like a match flickering in the dark, illuminating the shadows of our fears. We need to find answers, I whispered, swallowed by the gravity of our entangled destinies, and as I glanced back toward the door, torn between two paths that seemed impossibly intertwined, I felt a burgeoning sense of dread. Whatever awaited me at home, however daunting, could not be ignored. But courage was also rising within me, urging me to uncover the truths still lurking beneath the surface. Promise me you'll stay safe, I said, locking eyes with Caleb, my heart driven by a fierce need to protect him, to protect us both. I promise, he returned, his tone heavy with equal measures of fear and resolve. But as I turned to leave, each step felt like a step further into darkness, not towards the answers I craved, but toward a tangled fate that lay ahead, and I couldn't shake the feeling that in seeking one truth, I risked losing another. With each step I took toward my car, the hollow ache of uncertainty echoed in my chest. The heaviness of what Caleb had just learned trailed behind me, an anxious tether binding me to the conversation we'd just shared. I knew we were standing on the precipice of something monumental, but now just as swiftly I was yanked back into the haunting reminders of my family's burdens, the wounds of my upbringing weighing heavily on my shoulders. The drive home was punctuated by flashes of memories, most of them bright yet underscored by a lingering darkness. Images of laughing under the summer sun, of secrets exchanged at twilight, moments that were now fading into echoes of a past tinged with loss. My mother's grave face rose unbidden at the forefront of my mind. What could possibly await me that warranted such urgency in her words? As I pulled into the familiar driveway, each creak of my car's suspension seemed to whisper warnings of what I was about to face. My heart raced, not just from the confrontation with my mother looming ahead, but from the nagging thought of what Caleb might unearth in my absence, what he might discover about himself and the past we shared. That I stepped inside to find the home starkly silent, devoid of the warmth that once enveloped it. The living room was undisturbed, the couch still holding the imprint of my father's last moments, a reminder that not all stories have happy endings. My mother appeared in the kitchen, her silhouette caught in the gentle light, and I felt the air thicken with tension. Hannah. She turned, eyes puffy and red, as if she had been weeping for days. I'm glad you're here. Her voice trembled, signaling just how serious her news was. Mom, what is it? I asked, urgency mingling with a deep-rooted fear that had long lain dormant. She beckoned for me to sit, the weight of her gaze pressing down on me like a heavy fog. It's about your father. The name formed a black hole in my chest. What about him? I couldn't help the anxious quiver in my tone. There was a stillness, as if time had paused, before she spoke again. He wasn't the man you thought he was. There were things he kept hidden, things we never discussed, and now her voice broke, eyes darting to the side as if seeking refuge from the truth that weighed heavily upon us. Now what? I pressed, trying to keep the tremor from my voice, though I felt the walls of my childhood home closing in around me. Evidence has come to light regarding the explosion. Your father, he had connections, dangerous ones, she revealed shakily, the revelation feeling like a pinprick that would set the entire balloon of my emotions afire. How can this be? My mind raced, recalling the patterns of denial I had carefully constructed for myself. He was just a simple engineer. He couldn't have been involved in something that treacherous. Her lips formed a thin line, a shudder escaping her as she struggled to hold herself together. That's what I thought too. But I found something. Old files, letters addressed to people I don't recognize, hints at dealings I couldn't comprehend. I've been too terrified to dig deeper, but if what you and Caleb uncovered is true, we're no longer safe. The tremor in her voice shattered any notion I had of claiming strength in the face of adversity. Mom, we need to go to the police. They might be able to help us sort this out before it gets out of hand, I said, my resolve emerging like a flickering flame amid looming darkness. Her gaze fell, the light in her eyes dulled by a well of years of hidden regret. And what if they don't believe us? What if they think I'm just trying to defend your father's name? The weight of her doubt pierced through my heart, filling me with icy uncertainty. Then we can find someone who will, I insisted, each word a battle cry against the rising tide of despair. As she raised her eyes, I saw a glimmer, an echo of the woman who once fiercely loved and protected me. You're right, she finally said. But first, there's something you need to understand. You'll need to be careful. There are people who could come after us. Those who know the truth. The words dripped with the burden of hidden knowledge, and I felt the old ghosts of our family tragedy rear their heads, summoning instances from the past where silence had buried more than we could bear. Where is Caleb? He needs to know. He's waiting for you, she said, her eyes suddenly sharp, probing mine for assurance. Are you sure you want to face him with this? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. The thought of returning to Caleb was both exhilarating and terrifying. I wanted to protect him from the murky past, from the interconnected dangers of our histories. Yet with every heartbeat, I knew I couldn't shield him from the truth any longer. Did I have to tell him? I asserted, my voice steadier than I felt. We can't hide from this anymore. As I made my way back outside, my heart raced with anticipation and fear, until the familiar figure of Caleb emerged, waiting in the driveway, his posture tense, his eyes alive yet shadowed by a mix of worry and resolve. Hannah, he called, worry lacing his tone. I was worried something happened. What did your mother say? I could feel the swells of truth bubbling up, battling against the dam of secrets I'd carried for so long. The jagged edges of my heart were laid bare, and as I opened my mouth, the words began to tumble out in a rush. There's more to my father than I ever knew. The explosion, it might connect to him, but before I could unveil the full weight of the truth, a loud crash echoed from the street. We both turned towards the sound, hearts pounding. A dark car screeched to a halt, its headlights piercing the evening gloom. The realization struck me like lightning. Whatever ghosts we were confronting were not in our past, they were here, now, breathing down our necks. In that moment, as uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud overhead, the knife edge of fate hung precariously above us, and I knew that the safety I had yearned for was crumbling away, like the very foundations of the lives we had built. As the echoes of the car crash faded, the adrenaline surged through my veins, urging me to act. Caleb and I exchanged quick glances, his eyes wide with apprehension, mirroring the chaos welling inside me. My instinct screamed for us to retreat, to hide from whatever darkness was emerging, but instead, I felt an unexpected pull, a compulsion to confront whatever and whoever it was that had intruded into this sacred space of revelation. We walked cautiously toward the street, hearts racing like twin drumbeats, our surroundings morphing from familiar comfort into something alien and threatening. The dark car seemed to shimmer against the fading dusk, its presence felt like an omen. Stay close, I whispered to Caleb, taking a step forward, shielding him with my presence. I had to protect him as best I could, even as threads of anxiety twisted around my thoughts. The engine rumbled as the car's door swung open with a creak that matched the growing tension in the air. A figure emerged, their face obscured by the shadows and the night, and instinctively I reached for Caleb's hand, squeezing it tightly. Hannah. The voice was hoarse, strained with an emotion I couldn't identify. Is that you? The world around us narrowed down to that singular sound, razor-sharp and cutting through the heavy night. As the figure stepped into the glow of the streetlight, what I saw sent a chill down my spine. It was Jace, my brother's friend, the one who had last been a vibrant part of our lives a decade ago before the thread of our reality unraveled. Jace? Caleb questioned, eyes squinting, clearly unsure if he should embrace confusion or fear. What are you doing here? I demanded, my voice trembling between shock and something ominous. You left. You disappeared just like everyone else. Jace's expression flickered, and for a moment, the bravado faded away, exposing vulnerability beneath the surface. I know, but I didn't have a choice. I was pulled into something I couldn't control. You have to believe me. It felt surreal to watch him stand there, every inch of him bundled in the weight of abandonment and guilt. You're the last person I ever expected to see, I managed, heart racing as nostalgia wove through the fabric of my emotions. The memories danced in my mind, laughter that once filled our backyard, late-night secrets shared under the starlit sky. That boy had vanished just as abruptly, leaving behind a void our family had never truly recovered from. That I came back because I need your help, he said, a pleading edge to his tone. It's not safe. They're coming for us all. Who's coming for us? I almost whispered, a cold shiver running down my spine as a knot of dread tangled deep inside me. I can't say here. It's too exposed, too many ears. His gaze flicked nervously around us, finding shadows where none existed. I turned to Caleb, searching his face for support, but instead, I found a storm inside him battling between disbelief and concern. Jace, this isn't how things work, I said, voice rising with every word. The past surged forward, bringing with it feelings of anger, loss, and frustration. You just show up now? After all this time? You think I thought of you every day, he interrupted, desperation coloring his words. I was forced to leave everything behind, but I learned things about your family, about the explosion. It's bigger than I ever imagined. The night air was thick with a mix of incredulity and residual pain. You expect us to believe that after 10 years of silence you just happened to walk back in, claiming our past is dangerous? His eyes glistened, reflecting struggles I could only partly comprehend. I don't expect you to believe anything. But if I didn't come, I knew it would all end. They wouldn't let me live, let alone the both of you. I dare not risk letting your family be dragged into this mess. That a barrage of emotions warred inside May's return brought a flicker of hope, but it was eclipsed by the threat hovering over us. What do you know? There are files, connections, people who want to silence anyone questioning the past, he said, glancing back at the car as if it held the answers within its metal shell. I thought your father was dead, but what if I told you there's a chance he's still alive? Still involved? The world spun around me, memories and fears colliding like fireworks. This was too much, too overwhelming. I could hardly breathe as the implications of his words settled like heavy stones on my chest. Stop. Just stop. I retorted, the emotional weight threatening to crush me. You're saying things that are impossible. But deep inside, the flicker of curiosity ignited a burning urge to discover the truth, however terrifying it might be. An unquenchable thirst to understand what lay hidden in the shadows of my family's past. Caleb stepped forward, breathing heavily. If we're doing this, if you're involved, Jace, I want the truth. All of it. Just as his words sank in, the familiar shadows loomed again, and from across the street, ominously illuminated by the moon's cold light, another figure emerged. It was a silhouette against the deepening night, a woman, wrapped in an aura of mystery and menace. Time's up, she called, her voice smooth yet laced with malice. You've lingered too long. Hand him over, and no one gets hurt. My heart raced as the realization dawned upon me. The fight to protect our past had just escalated, and whatever bonds remained were about to fracture irrevocably. The unyielding truth lay just out of reach, shrouded in darkness, and the path ahead spiraled tantalizingly toward an abyss that threatened to consume us all. Run! I shouted to Caleb and Jace, but as we turned, fear gripped me, the weight of my choices spiraling through the very core of my being. It was never just about our family's past, Anna Marie, it was about our very survival, a fight that had just begun. The frantic rush of footsteps echoed as we fled down the dimly lit street, terror sharp in every heart-thudding beat. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, the instinct to protect and shield Caleb pushing me forward despite the chaos swirling within. Jace fell in step beside us, darting glances over his shoulder, the ghost of fear spilling across his face. Where do we go? Caleb gasped, breathless and a little wild. I could feel his hand trembling in mine, the closeness grounding me in this maelstrom of uncertainty. Point two, don't know, I stammered, panic rising as I realized this was uncharted territory. Back to the house? It's not FAR.no. Jace's voice cut through the air, urgent and commanding. They'll know to look there. We need to find somewhere secluded. That I could barely process his words. My mind caught somewhere between disbelief and the stark realization that we were ensnared in something far larger than any of us understood. You're the one who showed up out of nowhere. You should have a plan. Jace's eyes darted, blazing with intensity. I don't have all the pieces. Just trust me. I came looking for you because I didn't want this to happen. We're in danger, Hannah. A lump formed in my throat, a knot of anguish rooted deeply in how helpless I felt. The sensation of betrayal skimmed over my skin like icy rain. The warmth and safety I craved seemed like specters of the past. Trust is hard right now, I said through gritted teeth, conflicted over my past memories of Jace and the crushing reality of his abandoned promises. We turned another corner, darting down an alleyway that cut through the industrial heart of the nearby neighborhood. The air was thick with the scent of machinery and oil, a realm far removed from the life we had known. With the looming presence of the woman haunting us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were mere moths drawn to a blaze. As we slowed to catch our breaths, the faint sound of footsteps echoed behind us. My heart raced anew. Any comfort we had found evaporated beneath the dread that surrounded us. What do I do? Caleb whispered, his voice trembling. Stay close, I urged, my grip on his hand tightening. The world felt heavy and flickering, a surreal collage of memories and fears born from lost truths. Jace, do you know where we can go? He led us through a series of twists and turns, finally stopping at a small, decrepit warehouse nestled behind a series of towering industrial buildings. A flickering neon sign hung loosely above the entrance. It felt like a sanctuary and a trap all at once. This place should be safe, Jace murmured, leading us inside the dimly lit structure. The smell of damp earth and rust swirled in the air, painting the walls with testimonies of neglect. Why this place? I asked, scanning the shadows that seemed to swallow us whole. Because no one comes here anymore, and I've spent years dodging worse. If we're careful, we can talk here, away from prying eyes. I nodded but couldn't shake the distress gnawing at my insides. The stakes were rising, every moment pressing me deeper into this labyrinth of dread. Seated in a corner, we pulled ourselves together, the echoes of our fears intermingling with a flicker of determination. So, start explaining, I commanded, staring deeply into Jace's eyes, searching for clarity even as confusion clouded my heart. That he took a breath, shoulders tight with tension. After I left, I got involved with a group people looking into the explosion. I thought it was just a local issue, but I stumbled onto something larger. There are people in power who don't want the truth revealed. What truth? Caleb pressed, desperation lacing his tone. The truth about your father, Jace continued, voice low, cracking slightly. When I found records, old documents, I realized that he might not be dead after all. They faked the explosion, a cover-up. A chill washed over me. No. It can't be, my voice faltered, the shards of disbelief piecing together a worrying picture, but the glimmer of hope kindled. Could it be true? Could my father still be alive, entwined in this web of danger? Suddenly, the clatter of footsteps echoed outside the warehouse doors. My heart dropped, pounding against my ribcage like a frantic bird desperate for escape. They found us. Without thinking, I grabbed Caleb's arm, yanking him toward a hidden nook in the wall, shadows wrapping around us like a protective shroud. Jace remained tense, peering toward the entrance, his form blending into the darkness. The footsteps stopped. Looks like they ran to ground, a gruff voice called from the outside. A man, resolute and commanding. Search the area. I want eyes on every exit. They can't get away this time. We know what they're hiding. My breath hitched, dread weighing heavily on my chest as the realization settled. There was no escaping this anymore. The past had come barreling back into our lives, and the fight was far from over. The only shred of hope I had clung to was now wreathed in danger, and we were about to find out just how deep the tangled web ran. Caleb squeezed my hand tightly, a silent promise binding us against the encroaching shadows. Just before the warehouse doors burst open, revealing the outlines of figures silhouetted by moonlight, an urgent whisper behind me echoed into the tense silence. A voice I'd thought lost in time. Hannah, you need to listen to me. The moment hung in the air, heavy with unspoken histories and pain. I turned slowly, dread creeping along my spine as I met the piercing gaze of the man I thought I would never see again, Marco. It had been 10 years and yet, he looked exactly like the boy I had once loved, transformed only by the world's bitter lessons but still etched into my heart. Hannah, please. His voice was a patched whisper, but I could hear the urgency, the desperation coding each word. I know this is a lot, but I need your help. I choked out, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. The bitterness of his abandonment surged within me, mixing with the shock at his return. You left. You can't just waltz in here and expect me to help after all this. We don't have time for this. Jace snapped, his eyes darting between us, anxiety lining his features. They're coming, Marco, and if we don't move, we're done for. Don't you dare drag him into this, Jace. I shot back, voice a blend of anger and betrayal. After everything, he has no right to shut up. Jace's fury erupted, and I felt Caleb flinch beside me. Both of you. We can argue about past grudges later. Right now, we need a plan to stay alive. The growling chaos of footsteps outside intensified, punctuated by calls between figures I couldn't see. They were closing in. Please, Hannah. Marco stepped forward, his expression softening. These people, they think him dead too. I've been hiding, trying to find the truth about everything about your father, about what happened to us. His words tugged at the fraying edges of my heart, a mixture of anger and reluctant compassion. My father's alive? I whispered, thoughts racing as I recalled the last time my world had felt safe. How do you know? Because I've seen the records, he answered, urgency slicing through the tenderness in his gaze. I didn't come back for you, I came back for this. All of us need to uncover the truth, together. How do I know you're not just here to betray me again? My voice trembled, even as I craved his touch, the warmth of a past that felt just out of reach. You hurt me, Marco. You vanished without a word. His eyes softened, remorse blooming within the shadows. I was scared. I didn't know how to fight. I thought you were better off without me dragging you down. From behind me, Caleb shifted nervously, lingering on the tensions running thick, clearly feeling the weight of every unspoken word. Maybe we should focus on escaping first, he suggested, glancing around the darkened warehouse. We can talk about this later, but could we really wait? The past was wielding its dagger, the memories of laughter, whispered secrets, and shared dreams now curling into blades that threatened to sever ties once again. Marco, why now? I pressed, challenging the tangled mess of emotions. Things have changed, and we can't just go back to how they were, because I discovered something that can save you all. At that moment, the warehouse doors shuddered violently, each echo of metal a stark reminder that time was slipping through our fingers. I could feel the tension stretching in the air, each second pregnant with consequences. They're inside. Jace hissed, eyes wide, urging us hastily towards a back door concealed behind stacks of pallets. No. Marco interjected, grabbing my arm, his grip firm yet warm. If we go that way, we'll be cornered. I know a way through the vents at the back. Vents? My skepticism surged, memories of our shared childhood adventures colliding with fears resurrected. You expect us to climb through those like we're some kind of cartoon characters? It's that or face them head on. As proof of the urgency, a thundering boom hit the air, a sound all too close, and it gripped my heart with dread. I'll follow you, I relented, my voice barely above a whisper. Caleb met my gaze, fear etched into his young features. Hannah, I don't want to go back to those people. An unexpected resolve surged through me. We want. Together, we'll find a way out. The thought of escaping, of finding the truth about my father amidst this tangled mess, ignited a flicker of hope within. I knew the path ahead would be fraught with unresolved pain, but I couldn't abandon this chance, not for Marco, not for Caleb, but for everyone who had been a victim of the lies spun around us. With Jace guiding the way, we darted toward the makeshift escape route. Marco pointed out a crumpled vent hidden in the shadows. I could feel Marco beside me, his presence both familiar and terrifying, a reminder of everything I once lost. As we crawled through the darkness, the clamor of the warehouse erupted behind us, voices rising and falling as they turned the building inside out for us. With every inch we moved, the shadows followed, whispering warnings of pain and betrayal. I felt Marco's hand brush against mine, and the warmth sparked a million questions in my heart. "Hannah," he called softly, almost breathless as we squeezed through the narrow opening. "No matter what happens, I won't leave again." But just as we inched closer to freedom, a sudden vibration quaked beneath us, followed by a harsh metallic snap. The vent screeched as it buckled under the pressure, a cascade of debris raining down as chaos erupted behind us.no. I screamed, adrenaline pumping through my veins. With terror glazing my vision, I grabbed Caleb's hand and pulled him back towards me. Marco's grasp faltered just as the ceiling above us began to crumble, words of reassurance turning to desperate cries, and in that harrowing moment, the world shattered in layers of dust and darkness, cloaked by a rising torrent of uncertainty. But one thing remained fiercely clear amid it all: our fight, had just begun. The darkness enveloped us as we stumbled through the vent, the air thick with the musty scent of rust and forgotten corners. My heart raced, echoing against the cold metal walls, while the roar of chaos behind us fueled an urgency that was both horrifying and liberating. I could hear the distant shouts of the figures searching for us, their footsteps like thunder, amplifying the fear that clung to every corner of my mind. "Keep moving," Jace urged, the leader in this dangerous game, his voice cutting through the tension. I gripped Caleb's hand firmly, the boy's small fingers trembling in my grasp, and propelled him forward. Marco was right behind me, his presence an unsettling comfort. Every instinct told me to push him away, to harden my heart against the boy who had transformed into a man marked by secrets and scars. Yet here we were, suffocating in this confined space, and the truth he carried loomed large between us. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" I found myself whispering, needing to understand even as we faced a life-or-death situation. "Why now, when everything is falling apart?" His voice cracked, revealing a vulnerable side I hadn't seen in a decade. "I was scared, Hannah. I thought I could fix it from afar. I never imagined things would turn out this way. Your absence didn't just hurt me, Marco. It shattered everything I believed." The words escaped before I could stop them, each syllable heavy with the weight of our past. "I know, and I'm sorry," he replied, voice trembling with sincerity. "But I came back the moment I realized that those pieces could be put together again if we do it together." "Keep your voices down," Jace snapped from the front, glancing back anxiously. Every raised voice could be a beacon to those searching for us. I pressed my lips together, silencing the fire that ignited within me. We crawled forward in strained silence, my heart caught in a web of resentment and an unwilling flicker of hope. Somehow, against all odds, even in this moment of peril, the idea that we could face whatever had torn us apart settled uncomfortably in my chest. With every grating inch, my mind raced ahead to the sanctuary of escape. Thoughts of my father pinned me like a weight, reminding me how helpless I had felt all these years. Was he really alive? Did Marco hold the key to revealing the truth, or was this just another cruel twist in our tragic tale? Suddenly, a loud bang echoed behind us, followed by the screech of metal twisting against itself. "They're coming," Jace yelled, urgency drenching his words. "Hurry up," I propelled Caleb forward, urging him past the sudden churn of fear that settled in my gut, but Marco hesitated just behind me. That splitting sensation within my heart intensified as it hit me. Could I truly trust him? "Marco," I whispered urgently, my voice strained. "You can't let them catch you again. You can't let us down again." "That I won't," he promised, his brow creased with determination. "Well, get through this." I swear, just as I felt the faint stirrings of belief reignite within me, the vents suddenly rattled in a far more violent shake this time. I caught a glimpse of the pile of debris starting to give way, collapsing into the space where I was trapped. "Move, move," Jace shouted, his tone slicing through the creeping chaos. Panic surged, and I pulled Caleb quickly toward me, shoving him ahead as the vent caved beneath us. "Go!" I screamed as the metal twisted and groaned, fear wrapping around my throat like a choking vine. We squeezed through the last tight space when a deafening clang echoed, a final, jarring sound that signaled our leap into darkness. With a mighty crash, the vent collapsed behind us, a cloud of dust and debris obscuring the world we'd just escaped. We staggered out onto a crowded roof, the stench of the city mingling with the adrenaline in my bloodstream. "Where do we go now?" Caleb's voice wavered, a trembling question that reminded me of the child he was. Before I could answer, Marco grabbed my arm again, his eyes sharp and pleading. "There's a safe house nearby, a place we can regroup. I've been working with someone? I interrupted, the revelation burning in the air between us. "You're not alone in this," he hesitated, the shadows just beneath the surface of his expression quickly darkening. "Not exactly, it's complicated, Hannah. But we don't have much time to explain. We need to keep moving." A tense silence enveloped us as we faced each other, chilled by the weight of uncertainty. We can't just trust anyone after everything that's happened. Jace's voice trembled, caution infused in his tone. "Who is this person? It's not someone you know. But they can help us figure out what's going on." Marco's desperation echoed in the tightness of his voice, and I felt the protective instincts rise within me, hearing not just his words but the undertones woven through them. Caleb's gaze darted nervously between all of us, sensing the tension suffocating the air. "We need to be careful." "I don't want to get caught." "Well, be careful," I assured him, glancing between the two men who had comprised the very fabric of my past and present. With the future uncertain, the weight of my father's whereabouts still looming, I didn't know if I could trust Marco or even Jace, who seemed to harbor his own motives. But as the horizon began to glow with the orange kiss of dawn, a flicker of something bloomed in my chest, a longing for clarity and truth. We had to make our move now, or lose what little chance we had to reclaim what had been stolen from us, and as we darted across the roof, hearts racing in tune with the rising sun, I couldn't shake the growing feeling that we were on the precipice of an entirely new danger, one intertwined with the very essence of love, loss, and betrayal. I took a deep breath and urged us forward, my resolve stealing as shadows danced on our next path. What awaited us beyond the door could change everything, but buried beneath the weight of it all remained the question that throbbed with each beat of my heart. Could I truly forge ahead with the wounds of the past barely healed, yet tearing open anew? The sun's early rays barely grazed the horizon as we reached the edge of the rooftop. Below, the city stretched out like a mosaic of fractured mirrors, each shard reflecting lives untold and futures suspended in uncertainty. Marco led the way, his movements sharp yet cautious. Every shadow seemed to whisper of danger as if they held the very essence of our tumultuous past. "There's a door on the back side," he murmured, pointing to a steel entrance that gleamed ominously in the dawn's light. My heart tightened at the sight. "It leads to an alley. We can slip through without being seen." As we approached, Jace hesitated, glancing back at the void we'd just escaped. "What if they follow us?" "Are you sure this is safe?" "There's only one way to find out," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I was surprised by my own resolve. Perhaps it was the adrenaline or the flickering hope that kept me going. Or perhaps it was the undying question that boiled within me: why had Marco returned, and what had he to lose now? Caleb, clutching my hand tightly, looked up at me, innocence masked in fear. "Hannah, what if they catch us?" His voice was a mere quiver, like a leaf ready to fall from a branch in the gust of a coming storm. "Then we fight," I replied, squeezing his hand to bolster his courage. The truth was, I feared what lay behind that door as much as my boy did. I didn't just worry for his safety, but also the fragile threads connecting the lives surrounding Methreeds that could snap at the slightest tremor of betrayal. With a flick of Marco's wrist, he swung the door open, revealing a dimly lit staircase descending to what felt like an abyss. "After you," he said with a mock bow, but I could see the tension etched across his brow. "Stop it, Marco," I snapped, irritation sparking like fire. "This isn't a game." His lips pressed into a thin line. "I know. I'm just trying to lighten the mood." Jace shot me a knowing glance as he stepped cautiously forward. "Let's save the banter for later. We need to move." As we descended, the air thickened with unease. The musty scent enveloped us again, reminiscent of the vents we had fled through. I tried to focus on the echoes of our footsteps, each sound resonating with the countless choices leading us here. Choices Marco had made for himself but left me shattered in the shadows. Finally, we reached the ground floor. The door ahead creaked open to a narrow alley, and a flicker of light came into view, as faint as the fluttering hope in my chest. Once outside, we paused, soaking in the haunting silence that blanketed the world. But it was short-lived. A rustle broke the stillness, and I turned instinctively, my muscles tensing. "Stay close," Jace whispered fiercely, and we huddled together, breaths shallow, there, in the shadows. Caleb pointed, his small gesture seeming monumental in the hollow stillness that my heart raced as I squinted through the dim light, discerning figures lurking behind a dumpster. A fleeting moment of sheer panic gripped me. But just as quickly as it rose, it dissipated when I recognized the face. Tom? I called, disbelief creeping into my voice. The scruffy man stepped into the light, his familiar worn-out clothes hanging loosely around him. Someone's been looking for you, kid, he said, his gravelly voice carrying a hint of urgency. Who? My heart skipped, thoughts of my father exploding in a violent storm within. Been hearing whispers. Said someone knows where your old man is, he replied. The words sung through the marrow of my bones. Hope flared, bright as the dawn I had wished for so desperately. Why didn't you contact me? A bristling silence enveloped us, and I could see shadows play across Tom's face before he stepped closer. You've been in a lot of danger, he justified, glancing at Marco. When it all started, don't you think I was trying to protect you, protect me? The very word ignited a pang of anger within me, cutting through the hope that had begun to blossom. From what? The people who want to know the truth? The people who stop. Marco interjected, hands raised. We don't have time for this. We need to know where we can find him. Tom's gaze shifted from me to Marco, and I sensed the storm brewing beneath the surface. He's in a safe house. It's a good bet. But looking for him will trip alarms everywhere. Hannah, why should I trust you? I challenged, the weight of betrayal lodged in my throat, because, Jace interjected, piercingly calm compared to my rising tempest. We don't have many options left. If there's a chance to find your father, we have to take it. We can't keep running indefinitely. That I glanced around, torn between the longing for closure and the gnawing fear of losing more than just memories. As the reality of our perilous situation seeped into my bones, the words climbed unwelcome through my mind. The fragile thread of trust one was about to weave would either tie us together or unravel everything. Fine, I said, voice trembling yet firm. Lead the way. But if there's any treachery, I swear we won't let anything happen to you, Marco promised, a newfound intensity in his gaze, or was that desperation? But just as he was poised to follow Tom, the screech of tires punctured the air, cutting through the silence like a knife. My heart raced, hope shattered, replaced by a blaring warning. What was that? There's no time. We need to go, Marco exclaimed, moving to the alley's mouth, urgency dancing in his voice. Jace urged Caleb forward, his protective instincts firing, yet, I remained rooted to the spot. Something felt off. And then I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoed against the ground. My heart dropped into my stomach as figures emerged from the mist, their silhouettes etched sharply against the fading dawn. My eyes widened in shock when I recognized the emblem on their uniforms, back inside. Jace shouted, but as the wave of realization crashed over me, the ground shifted beneath my feet. Move. Go. Marco's voice shattered the impending dread, and in an instant, we were scrambling back, but as the shadows encroached, I couldn't shake the growing certainty that betrayal lay waiting around the next corner. That I turned back one last time, confronting the man I had stowed deep within my heart. Marco, you've been back for a moment, but can you really save us when all is lost? His gaze connected with mine, the answer buried somewhere between fear and determination, and as the figures advanced, the truth I always feared loomed larger than life itself, threatening to consume everything I held dear. The world outside was a swirl of muted colors and noise, but as we sprinted down that alley, adrenaline coursed through my veins, drawing me away from the pain of the past and into the wild unknown of the present. Each step felt like a gamble, one that could bring us closer to salvation or drag us back into the darkness that had haunted us for years. Where to now? Caleb's voice trembled beside me, but I couldn't afford the luxury of looking down at him. He needed my strength more than ever. This was not just my fight anymore. Keep moving. Jace shouted, darting in front as he led us through the labyrinthine backstreets of the city. The once familiar neighborhood where childhood laughter had flourished now turned into a haven of shadows and hidden threats. My heart raced, pounding in rhythm with the mounting fear and confusion that surrounded us. Marco was a breath behind, the weight of his presence somehow both reassuring and burdensome. I could feel the tension zipping through the air between us. There was so much left unsaid, too many unresolved emotions tangled within the chaos that had brought us to this exact moment, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, punctuated by the growing footfalls of our pursuers. The realization of rerouted past connections settled heavily upon my shoulders. Jace's determination flickered like a candle fighting against the rising storm. We need to get to the safe house. It's the only way to regroup and plan our next move. Safe house? I panted, struggling to keep pace. You mean there's actually a place where we can stay hidden? Yes. But it's not far, Jace reassured, urgency surging through his words. I'll explain everything once we're safe. That we rounded a corner, barreling toward a tall brick building, its weathered facade cloaked in shadows that whispered promises of refuge. As we reached the entrance, I turned and caught sight of dark figures emerging from the fog shadows of our enemies closing in. I felt my heart lurch, but there was no time for fear. Get inside, Marco urged, lunging for the door as Jace shoved it open. Go, I shouted back, my voice raw with panic. Caleb, hurry. I turned to see him hesitating, fear etched into his young features, but before I could reach him, a shout rang out from behind us. There they are. A jolt of terror shot through me as I lunged forward, gripping Caleb's hand and yanking him into the dimly lit hallway of the safe house. The door slammed behind us, and I quickly turned the lock, the sound feeling like a fragile dance with fate. That we took a moment, breathless and shaken, to collect ourselves in the quiet sanctuary. Heavy beams of light filtered through the cracks in the walls, creating patterns of hope amid the darkness. What the hell was that? I exclaimed, as reality began to settle heavily upon my shoulders. The tumultuous emotions threatening to unhinge every fragile piece of my resolve. Just the tip of the iceberg, Jace responded, pacing as his brow knitted with concern. They've been watching. They know you're alive, Hannah. I don't care who knows. I want the truth, I declared, my voice echoing off the walls. Does anyone want to talk about where my father is? I deserve to know. Marco stepped forward, empathy flooding his gaze. I need you to trust me, he said, reaching for my hand. We each have pieces of the truth. I can help you find him, but we need to face the danger together. That's the only way to uncover what really happened. Caleb watched me, his little heart beating rapidly, and in that vulnerable gaze, I felt the stirrings of love and protection. You promise you won't leave again? I knelt down beside him, taking a trembling breath. I promise, I whispered, brushing his hair away from his forehead. You mean everything to me. Just then, a forceful knock echoed through the room, rattling the walls and ricocheting off my heart. The sound set my pulse racing again, and I turned back to Jace, who was staring wide-eyed at the door. Who is that? Stay back, Jace commanded, reaching into his pocket. But before any of us could react, the door burst open, and the harsh light flooded the room. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, a woman, fierce and powerful, her stance demanding attention. I thought I'd find you here, she said, her voice strong, resonating with authority. You're in grave danger, and there isn't much time. Who are you? I asked, my voice tightening as realization hit me. This was not just an ally, it was someone with knowledge beyond our understanding. That I am here to protect you. Her piercing gaze drilled into mine, revealing fragments of a history I hadn't yet grasped. And to help you find your father. My breath caught in my throat. You know where he is? He's alive, Hannah, she asserted, stepping into the dimness as the shadows peeled back ever so slightly. I can take you to him, but we need to act fast. They will come for you. They will come for all of us. What do you mean? Caleb's innocent fear broke through the tension, and I felt the connection grow stronger. My heart urged to protect him at all costs. Do you know them? I do. She hesitated, casting a glance over her shoulder. And I know what they'll do if they find you here. I'm not afraid of them, I exclaimed, the heat of my conviction surging within me. I'm going to find my father, no matter what. Then you are braver than most, she replied, moving closer, the urgency in her voice sparking the flames of determination in the room. Let's go, Jace instigated, the thrill of the chase igniting a fire within his eyes. We'll figure it out as we go. Whatever it takes. But I paused, grappling with how to bridge the fragments of a past that stood tethered to a future I couldn't foresee. I turned to Marco, still standing close behind me, the questions lingering unspoken. "Are you with us?" I asked, as my heart tore toward either direction. "I'll do whatever it takes to make things right," he vowed, a kindred spirit caught in a sea of uncertainty but echoing a truth louder than fear. And just like that, our paths intermingled again, intertwined with determination and vulnerability, like threads of tapestry woven tightly together. "Okay, let's go," I commanded, the bonds of our shared destinies shining brighter than the shadows that chased us. The thought of my father alive, waiting steadied my breath, igniting the dwindling sparks of hope. Together, we would restore the lost connections and uncover the truth that had haunted our lives and led us here. As we followed the mysterious woman into the unknown, the weight of the future loomed larger than any of us could predict. The world beyond awaited us, heavy with unanswered questions. But somewhere deep inside, I understood, no demon in your past can defeat love's fierce resilience. The door closed behind us as we stepped into the light of a new dawn, a fresh promise blooming before us. In that moment, I realized what I had been searching for all along, not just my father, but the courage to confront the truth, the power of connection, and the choices that would ultimately define us all. And though the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, one resolute thought echoed in my heart as we moved forward into the terrifying unknown: we are stronger together.